Hello everyone, welcome back to the KMTRADERS channel. So this is the full market analysis volume 123. Again, just giving you an insight what we've got up ahead for next week and comparing our analysis from last week as well. So without further ado, we'll look into gold first. So what we looked at last week was pretty much this possibility that we could expect to spring now to the upside, this potential momentum to switch from downside to the upside. And looking at last week, we pretty much found that momentum from on a weekly perspective. We started to push higher and higher. So ultimately I'm thinking this could progress higher and eventually take out some of these highs, which I'm considering a possible factor and something that could happen over the next few days or so. Will not necessarily reach that target, but over the up and coming weeks within this month and across maybe the summer, I'm expecting price for gold to go a little bit higher and just continue pushing up. But yeah, that's kind of the perspective that I'm seeing so far with gold. So yeah, let's take a look now into EU. So again, similar thing here. We were looking at the idea that price could start to rally and start to push up higher. Pretty much price had been rallying all last week, so buys were quite strong. We found some sort of reaction at 1.35, 1.035. We started to see some significant push here. So again, what I'm going to be doing for the annotations is just looking at a potential pullback. But again, here I'm also going to be mindful that we can easily sell off into the lows of 1.03 as well. So I'm going to try and hedge some sells here, but mainly try and find some buys. And it kind of touches on this idea here of where price is already got like some sort of divergence forming. So if we start to see this turn here, it could be a big rally, and which obviously a big amount to kind of capture. So we'll see what happens next week there. If we take a look into NZDUSD, pretty much same annotation here. Was expecting some sort of push up to the upside to some degree. So roughly around here, so 16th. So yeah, as you can see, a nice gradual push, nothing, no spike movement, but again, a push up to the upside is still worthy enough. I'm just also being mindful for this week as well that while we're still looking for this push towards the upside mainly, so something like this, it is possible that we can expect a pullback, and likewise with expecting a pullback to the downside, we could be looking for sells, because there is a possible idea that price could drop lower into 0.61 and go a little bit further lower than we would have thought, and then have this bigger move to the upside. So I'm going to be again hedging sells into buys type of thing. So we need to see if one of the two scenarios unfold for us, and then we can move forward. So if we take a look at AU, so we ended up looking at this divergence play here. One of the main factors that I was looking at again from this, like why I was expecting price to kind of push a little bit higher last week, was really with that divergence in the momentum in the RSI. So with that, we're pretty much going to potentially look at some sort of pullback now and see if we can continue up again higher. And another thing, like with AU and EU, again, is like looking, as we expect a pullback, we could be looking at some sells here, and then again take advantage of those sells and kind of hedge it, because if we don't get a buy opportunity, it could end up taking out 0.68. So we're roughly around the 0.69 region, 0.68 on the lower side. So again, that's pretty much like a support level. We just need to see where we can push into boundary wise. So if we move on to UJ, so what I've got an interesting thought about UJ. It's going to be quite indecisive again, but as you can see here through multiple annotations, there was a lot of scenarios that I'd built up over the last week. So we were roughly here. So what ended up happening was something like this. So I'm just going to try and make it a little bit clearer this week, because I don't think that kind of makes sense. But so yeah, anyway, so price has dropped over, so I'm going to leave this again here. So if we start to have another pullback, we can technically drop off lower, or we could have a deeper pullback and then drop off. That's on the cards, but also I'll probably keep that as this annotation for that deeper pullback. But another idea is that we could push into 132, and then from here I'm going to be mindful of what's going to happen. So again here, if we are looking or expecting at least some sort of push up higher, you know, there is an opportunity that we can look for buys into the upside and then hedge ourselves for sells and just keep an eye out for that. And then if this thing can drop, it will most likely do quite a bit of damage on this, because you know we have been waiting for a while. But I'm also mindful that this could be like it could have one more push to the upside and then drop off. So that's why I've left a bit of undecisive decision point here at 132. So I'm just going to leave that up here and just kind of base it upon once price gets there, then we'll react and see what happens. But ideally I just want to wait for that to get there and then we can discuss that further. But that's pretty much what I'm looking at for UJ. If we take a look into the other few pairs that we have, I believe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other pairs we got. So with CJ, what I'm looking for this is pretty much this idea of, so you know, I'm a bit half-hearted on this one, but pretty much I'm looking for some sort of sell-off at some point. So it was roughly here last week, 16. So we started to have a turnover very gradually and very subtly, but again, it was nothing significant. So that's why I'm a little concerned of what is actually forming within this like range of 98 to 103. So what we could expect is either a pullback to some degree, whether it's minor or major. We'll have this turnover and we'll break the lows, or or we'll start to have some sort of push to the upside in which we take out 103. So I'm mainly looking for this setup, so like a push to the upside and then a sell-off. So with that being said, we can always look at a buying scenario, and then if we find a sell setup, we should be able to see it form. And yeah, basically again that scenario of hedging a sell, and pretty much we just need to wait. So again, a lot of patience is needed for this, otherwise you're going to be taking quite a lot of losses. I'm just trying to provide a little bit more transparency on this, because you can get stopped out quite a bit, and can obviously cause you to lose quite a bit of profits on this. So in this point of the time, there are a lot of range bound markets right now after everything has just been trending ridiculously easy. A lot of people are going to be throwing away their profits, so try not to get stuck into this ideology of giving back your money. So yeah, so looking into EJ, what I've got here, so if we look at 16, so pretty much we had the potential of price pushing up and then dropping lower. So it was kind of like this, but obviously it didn't fulfill the downside. So what I'm most likely looking at here now is pretty much this, but I'm probably going to move it a little bit higher. So maybe like this, only just a little bit. But yeah, something like this where we could expect price to drop off. And again, there is that opportunity for price to, you know, rise up higher and build. So like I said, if we find price, you know, buying and it's consistent, you know, it might be able to break 140. But if we start to see a reduction in that momentum, we start to see some heavy sells, it can give us a sell opportunity, and obviously we could potentially drop lower. So again, I'm just going to leave that there, but mainly we're looking for a buying option first, and then we can review whether a sell setup is even possible or even on the cards. So if we take a look at AJ, so AJ is pretty much an interesting one, but it's pretty much this annotation here that I'm kind of looking for. So 16, so we was looking for maybe some sort of drop lower. So well, we annotated maybe a drop and then a push up higher. So it was roughly around here. So we had a bit of a drop and then the push up. Again, I'm probably going to stick to the same scenario setup again. Ideally looking for some sort of pullback and then a push higher, and then this kind of setup to continue pushing lower. Or again, we'll start to see some gradual momentum to the upside, but I'm highly doubting that could happen based on the fact that how last week has performed, which is quite stagnated, and it's not really progressed anywhere, which is obviously an alarming pace or alarming rate. So I'm just going to sit back on AJ and just kind of keep this kind of frame and see if we can follow it. Moving on to the last two pairs, USDCHF. So this one has been an absolute storm for this week. Well, last week, absolute drop within this. So a good 300 pips on this one. So this one completely falling lower and lower. So my thoughts of this now that we've got price progressing lower, there is the possibility that price could, start to have a pullback. And obviously, as with a pullback of such like magnitude and length and strength to the downside, it only makes sense that there is a possible move to the upside in which it could be formulated as a pullback like this, or literally anything can happen in which we start to see this and it can break higher. So I'm keeping both ideas on the line here, in the sense where we're looking at both buying and selling. But while we're obviously dropping off, if we were to look at some buying opportunities, it would be able to hedge us in case of the scenario, or in case price does break higher into 1.01, or if we start to sell, then we can pretty much gauge both sides of the market. So ideally, that's what I'm trying to do. That's what I've got for USDCHF, I believe. So yeah, it's pretty much again, seeing that big drop off wasn't surprising, because we were kind of expecting something to cover this huge run, and I'm pretty much expecting that to happen with all the other pairs that had run aggressively higher as well. So if we take a look at the final pair for today, which is USDCAD. So what I essentially am looking at is pretty much this continued momentum lower, but what we've drawn here, so where it was about 16th of May, so around here. So pretty much was looking out for price to drop low, a little bit of a pullback, and sell and continue dropping off. We can see it's kind of been doing that, but what I'm probably going to do for this week is keep an eye on this sort of scenario again, so something like this, where we just dip a little bit lower, and I believe we could get prices pick up to the upside just by the way prices falling. But then another example that we could be looking out for and just be mindful of is any sells, because this could be a pullback that could drop. So I'm just kind of following on what's been unfolding with USDCHF and potentially what's going to unfold with UJ as well. But yeah, that's pretty much for this week. Hopefully it's not too crazy this week, but jam-packed and whatnot. We should be able to capture we should be able to see some significant moves. And yeah, so guys, if you did get any value from this video, leave a like. Obviously make sure you're subscribed as well for next week's video, and I do appreciate your time for listening. And that'll be all from us. So thank you all, and we'll see you all guys next week.